Hey Homeworthy, I'm Caity. Welcome to my Brooklyn apartment. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name is Caity Birmingham. I'm a film and TV production designer, and we're in my apartment here in Brooklyn, New York. I came out here to work on a film, and I had very little with me. I basically brought a 4x8 trailer filled with paintings and lamps because those are the important things. I was staying in a hotel, and every weekend I would come to the city from upstate and search for an apartment. And it was a very stressful process, as anyone who has rented in New York probably knows. And I eventually checked out Craigslist and I found a listing for this place. Craigslist, a very old school way to find an apartment. And as soon as I walked in here, I just felt like it was the right place. I love the high ceilings, I love the wood floors, I love the sort of strange but charming layout. And it just felt like a good spot to be. So I immediately, as you know, you have to jump on it when you find a spot in New York, so I immediately grabbed it. I took a lot of furniture from the film that I had worked on just to kind of give myself a base layer. A lot of what is here is still from that movie, and I built from there, and I had about a month off of work after that film, and I treated it like my job to decorate this place. Hello, welcome to my living room. I want to just show you my color-blocked French doors here. This idea was sort of inspired by movies, both because these are used in lighting to create different colors, but also I have done this in a film before where we had kind of a big bank of windows and we wanted to create a little visual interest, so we added some colored panels, and I think it just kind of gives the French doors, which are already kind of beautiful and special, a little bit something extra and adds color, which clearly I enjoy. So this is the room that when I walked into the apartment, I just was like, I have to live here. The ceiling height, the windows, the morning sunlight, this beautiful marble fireplace doesn't actually work, obviously, like they never do in New York, but it's very charming and it kind of creates a focal point for the room. A lovely mantle for me to put all my little things on. And also I love the molding that was already here. It's so interesting and kind of special. And even though, you know, there's a little bit of that landlord special of like 20 layers of paint and whatever color they happen to have in the basement, but I think that the details still shine through and they feel really special and kind of charming to me. So that's what made me want to live here. This, you know, was kind of an empty, dead space because it's not a working fireplace. It's a little bit like ugly in there, you might say. And so it actually was all like barricaded off with a piece of cheap plywood when I moved in. And I've seen people kind of decorate that front piece, like having a blocked off piece here and either painting it or just keeping it nice and clean and tidy. But of course, I wanted to use every inch and I am sort of interested in the idea of like shrines. I grew up Catholic. I'm sort of into some of that iconography, and I created a little shrine here. So I think it's an interesting way to use an unused fireplace. And actually I posted about this when I first decorated it. I put the wall tile and the floor tile on it, and then these stars and things, and they kind of like move around in the breeze and sparkle, and it's kind of magical. And I put this on Instagram, and it was like the first post I've ever done that went a little bit viral. So that was kind of funny and exciting. When I am working on location out of town, I'm always looking for little interesting things to take home with me, souvenirs that either we use in the movie or that I find from local artists. This was one such thing I found in Milwaukee from an artist I really like. And it's like kind of a planter made of shells and cement, very strange and special. There's a number of artists here who are kind of throughout my home because I love them so much. One is Esther Pearl Watson. She makes sparkly UFO art, kind of folk art style about her childhood, and there's always pink sparkly UFOs in it, and I just love that so much. So this is one that's actually a Post-it. There's a Post-it show in Los Angeles where wonderful artists sell their artwork on small 3x3 Post-its for about $20 each. And so I collected that maybe 15 years ago. And then another artist that's very prevalent in my home is Nathaniel Russell. This piece above the TV is his. And really, truly, like, every wall has something of his. Like, this is his as well. And another one is Martha Rich. She makes these speech bubbles with writing on them. I think a lot of phrases that she kind of overhears in the world, and then she puts them on these bubbles. I have probably 8 or 10 of them in my house. I just think they're really cool. Another artist that is throughout my home is named Mark Johnston, and he makes art out of recycled cans. And he actually made me these candle flames out of LaCroix cans. It was a special request from me. I wanted him to try it, and he made them for me. And he also made this one on barnwood with some aluminum cans, and there's a number of pieces throughout that I'll point out. This is a lamp I brought from LA, obviously very important. I had a 4x8 trailer, and this is the kind of thing I chose to put in there. It's something I got at a thrift store in the Valley in Los Angeles, and I just thought it was weird and great, and I think I have a bit of an affinity for like 70s and 80s style, and this to me feels very 70s. It's kind of just in a weird random spot right now, but I do like how it creates a pocket of light and a different kind of shape over here in this corner. I just generally don't like overhead lighting that much. So even in this room alone, you can see there's 5 lamps, and I kind of just think like the same way that you create light in a movie and kind of pockets of interest and different colors of light and different textures of light is how I like to do it in my home as well. So I have all my lamps on right now, even though it's daytime. If this were a movie, I would roll my eyes because usually you want things to feel you know, real in the way people live their lives, but I do want you to see them all lit up, and also it's been a very cloudy day until just now. I think every lamp in this room does something different and kind of provides different colors and textures to the space. I would describe my style as vintage inspired and eclectic, and basically I really like everything, so it's very hard for me not to take things home with me. I would also say I feel this way both in my work and my life, that shopping secondhand is really important to me, not just for sustainability reasons, although that is definitely part of it, but I mean, things that were made a long time ago were made better, and if they're still around, it's because they've stood the test of time. You want things to feel like part of the world, and you're bringing them home to make them part of your own world, but I think it's great when they bring a story and a history of their own. I was looking for a comfy chair to read in by the window, and I found this guy on Facebook Marketplace, and I think it's kind of got an 80s, 70s, 80s vibe, and the pattern at first glance doesn't go with anything else that's around it. The pillows are kind of wacky, the curtain and the chair kind of clash, there's a geometric thing going on with the carpet, but you know what? I firmly believe that if you like your stuff, it's gonna look good together. And people are like, how do you put all these colors and patterns together? And I'm like, I just put things I like in the same room, and then I like the whole room. That's just how it works. And I think you can really trust yourself to find things that excite you and that feel cozy and homey and interesting to you, and then your whole space will come together. I needed curtains for these very tall windows, and so I found this Indian printed cotton fabric on Etsy, and I just sewed them myself, very simply, not particularly well, but it does the job. This stained glass piece is one of my favorite things I've ever found on a project. It was actually when we were shopping for Sorry Baby. We filmed that movie up in Boston area, North Shore of Boston, and we were scouring Facebook Marketplace for special interesting items. And we bought this to put in the window of the cottage in the film. And actually we ended up cutting it from the movie because they wanted to shoot through the window and it was in the way. But I was like, I'm gonna take that guy home with me. So I think it's actually, it just makes so much sense in my home, and I think that it was just meant to be mine. This is a print, I think it's called The Green Lady by Tretyakov. and it was widely printed in like, I think the 50s and 60s, so it's super mid-century, and it was kind of part of this wave of like mass-produced art. I found this one at a flea market up in Northern California when I was working on a film there, and I think she's really interesting, and I think this is an original print, and it has, even though it's a print, it has like a lot of, I don't know, it has a lot of soul to it, I guess, and the frame's all messed up and it's like water damage, and I just think it's really interesting and fun. I would call this sofa temporary. I like it a lot. I found it on Facebook Marketplace, but it's not really a sofa. I think that's a generous term for it. It's more of a little love seat settee, and it's not great for lounging and watching television. I do think it's very cute, and I think it's genuinely old. It's from the 50s. It has a stamp on the bottom that says like who made it in the 1950s. So I think that's very cool, and I like how it feels in the space. This is also a bit of an awkward room because there's a lot of things going on the walls. There's many doors, there's windows that are low, and then there's this fireplace. So actually finding a wall to put a sofa on is kind of a trick, and I think this is a door that I do not use that goes to the hallway, so technically I could cover it up with a couch, but it feels a little bit strange to do that. So I haven't quite figured out a long-term solution here yet, but I do like the way this feels in the space. It kind of has a little bit of a Golden Girls vibe, which I have to say, always an inspiration style-wise. This piece of art here is by my friend Amber Fletchock, who I went to college with actually, and she makes really beautiful dynamic collages out of magazines and other kind of vintage paper and materials, and she gifted me this, and I was like, I'm gonna feature it always forever in my home in a prime, you know, a prime spot. So that's what I'm doing here. I don't know why I love this coffee table so much. It's very funny actually. I bought it in graduate school when I was in Chicago at a thrift store for $10. It was exactly like this, all scarred up with the paint job that it currently has, and it's really gigantic. It's kind of like weirdly tall and weirdly big, and you know, it takes up a lot of space in this room, but I do use it as a workspace sometimes, and I also I kind of like the proportions of it. I think it's funny and interesting, and I didn't bring it to LA with me, but my uncle had stored it for me, and on my way driving across the country, I picked it up and brought it to my new place. And so I've had it for probably 15 years, but I haven't been using it all the time. I do sometimes think how this room would feel with a smaller coffee table, and maybe when I change out the sofa, I might change out the table as well. But for now, I just think it kind of is an interesting statement and a cool center of the room. So this is one of those awkward things about a New York apartment where you kind of have a door that you don't need and that is taking up valuable wall space. I'm not saying I have a great solution for it right now, but I did, you know, use it as a place to hang some more art. This is a beautiful hand-painted item by an artist named Leslie Ann Numbers, who I think she's from the Midwest, and I follow her on Instagram. I really think it's charming and cool, and this is a poster from the Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe, which is one of my favorite museums in the world. I do kind of have the door blocked by this little table, but I don't know what the long-term solution here is. It's just kind of an awkward space to make sense of. This column I find very funny, and I actually purchased it for a music video I did for Caity Bryant was the director, and we just kind of got to do a lot of kitschy, funny, weird little tableaus and setups for the video, and this featured prominently in the video, and now I had to obviously take it home with me. Here's my 15-year-old television. I very rarely use it, but I think it's nice to have. It's often hidden behind this door here. I get a lot of screeners for my job, so every year I get like 20 or so movies to watch at home, so I just kind of pile up, but it's nice to have them for future viewing. So we've made our way around the living room. This is a room that some people might use as their bedroom, but I kind of liked it to be more of a public space and a workspace. So I live on the second floor of, it's sort of a brownstone style building, but it's not as picturesque outside as a brownstone might be. But it's got basically 3 apartment units in it, one on the first, second, and third floor. So I have the entire second floor. And I believe this used to be a single family home. Actually, my landlords told me that they raised their family in this house. And so it has since been converted to 3 flats, and the layout is interesting. There's a central staircase, and then my apartment has 3 doors that go out to the staircase, which of course takes up a lot of wall space and is a little inconvenient because I don't actually need 3 doors. So I only use one, the one in the kitchen. And I have a bathroom and a kitchen over here. I'm in the middle room right now, which is the only room that doesn't have windows. And then this would maybe be used as a dining room or even a bedroom. I've heard people say, why don't you use this as your bedroom? It's kind of like, you know, private and cozy and in the middle of the apartment. But then I have a living room here, and then finally a tiny little bedroom. It's about 6 by 9 feet. And I chose to put my bed in there because I like a little cozy nook that's a little out of the way, and I like for the main part of the apartment to be usable kind of space for working and space for visiting with people, and so that was my choice that I made. I think other people would have made one of these other rooms into the bedroom potentially. Welcome to my office workspace. This is a room kind of in the middle of the apartment, so it doesn't have any windows, but it has a lot of light coming from both sides. And I feel like a lot of people would make this into the dining room or maybe even their bedroom. And I just wanted it to be, I've always wanted a workspace office that I could really like actually spend time in and surround myself with things that kind of inspire me and that are useful to me, my tools. I do computer work here when I work from home. I do collage work here when I'm kind of not actively working on a project. I like to have sort of my own projects going on here. I like this work table. It's very long and has a lot of room to spread out. Sometimes I'll get my sewing machine out and do sewing projects here. So it's very usable space actually. In my space in Los Angeles, I had a second bedroom and it had sort of an office vibe, but to be honest, it was more like a dressed set. Like I created it to look like an office, but I didn't actually use it. I feel like that's kind of a hazard of my job, is sort of to make things very presentational and sort of like, this is what this space is supposed to be used for, but I actually do use this room a lot. I spend so much time in here. And I really love all the things that I surround myself with in this room. Let's start in the corner. So I always like to have a bulletin board. I think this like really lends itself to my sort of nostalgic 70s, 80s kind of style interest. So I got all my little collectible items here, pins and things like that. This mask is a paper mache mask from the 80s by an artist named Gina Tro, I believe is the pronunciation. And she made a lot of like very colorful paper mache masks in the 80s, and it has such a specific style to it that I think really fits right in over here. So these speech bubbles are by the artist Martha Rich. I have quite a few of her pieces around my apartment. Not only speech bubbles, although many of them are. I just find them really charming and interesting. This piece is the #1 thrift store holy grail find of my entire life. It's a 1970s Utensilo wall organizer made by, I believe, by Vitra was the company, and it was kind of part of that mid-century 60s, 70s fabricated plastic style item kind of trend. And it was on my wish list forever in this particular color as well. It comes in like cream and like kind of less bright colors as well. But this was truly on my list of things to find or one day own, and it was way out of my price range. And I went to a Goodwill in Van Nuys, California, and it was just like leaning against the back wall with a bunch of paintings in front of it. And I truly like almost fainted. And I like had to immediately take it up to the front counter and purchase it and put it in my car before I could like even do anything else. So this cost me $20. And it's truly like such a cool focal point in the room. It's so fun for creating a workspace and actually having useful items on hand. And I just think visually it's like very cool and really speaks to my overall design aesthetic. This tiny chair is from the show Joe Pera Talks With You. In our 3rd season, there was a story about him learning how to build a chair. And at the end of the show, he had all these tiny chairs made for the crew. So I will always remember that. This is by the artist Mark Johnston. He makes a lot of like kind of nature-inspired art out of recycled materials. This one's made out of chewing tobacco cans. I really like the way that he uses materials that would otherwise go to waste, and also kind of like using the qualities like the typeface, the design, and also the shine of the aluminum to make something that seems really special. This clock is every hour is cool. This is from the website Society6, where a lot of artists sell their work and they make different products out of it and print it on different items. And I just thought having a clock where every hour was cool seemed like a good vibe. I found this number 5 at a really great store upstate in Kingston called Kingston Consignments. I found a lot of my favorite thrifted items in New York at that place. And I think what appealed to me about it is that it reminded me of like the 70s design books that I loved. Actually, ever since I was a kid, I would like pore over like home decorating books from the 70s and 80s. So clearly that has had an effect on me. But I feel like there was this office that would be like photographed in these books where people would just have these super graphic, like big, like numbers and letters. And as soon as I saw this at the store, I was like, I gotta incorporate that. It goes with my wall organizer, and it's kind of giving this whole feeling of like a 70s workspace, which I find very cool. I have a lot of stuff. Like there's layers and layers of things collected here. I do a lot of collage work, so I literally collect like bits of paper. So you kind of have to be organized in order for that not to become a total chaotic nightmare. So I have like all of these labeled bins down here with like different useful items for crafting, and for also I use them in my work, like vinyl letters. We use a lot in filmmaking to, you know, change or add to a location. So once again, you see my love of artwork with text on it and graphic design. This is an introductory ethic for designers by Rick Griffith, who's a designer, and it is really about graphic design and working as a graphic designer, like in the corporate world. And but I think it extends to my kind of design, production design, and it just kind of has a lot of good notes for living and for working. This is another piece by Mark Johnston, who makes all of the artwork out of recycled materials. And this is a piece that a movie I did probably 15 years ago. The production designer I was working with, we used this dresser in the movie, and then he took the front off the drawer and made me this so that I would always remember the dresser, because it was really cute, but it was kind of broken, so he kind of made something new out of it, which I love. Here, it's just a lot of like thrifted, kitschy, collectible things, but I feel like I like how they all come together. And these are like kind of reference books that I like to keep close to me when I'm working. This piece here is by Nathaniel Russell, who I have many of his pieces throughout my apartment. I just find him really inspiring. Both content and kind of the message of his work is really lovely and hopeful and funny and interesting. A lot of times something I do in movies, which I've taken into my own life, is to cover things in vinyl if they're not the color I want them to be. So this table actually, it's kind of coming off because I use it a lot, but it used to be sort of a green laminate, and I covered it with this contact paper vinyl. And I think when you're living in a rented space and kind of adapting to what's here, and you don't necessarily have money to get the exact perfect finish on everything that you want, that's a really quick way to do it that can really change the feeling of a piece if you cover it in vinyl. So these little guys remind me of my time on this show called Comedy Bang Bang. I was the designer on it for about 70 episodes. And in season 5, we did a redesign of the studio. And I was looking out for like funny, interesting little knickknacks to have on the shelves behind the host and behind the musical act. And these rock concerts from the 70s, it's literally a bunch of rocks. It's so kitschy and silly, but I made actually like, I bought that one and then it was way smaller than I expected. So I made one for the show that was like this big and had it on the shelf in the back wall. I don't know where that one is, but I did keep the inspiration, so. And I guess I just find the idea of pet rocks, which was like another like 70s, 80s kind of childhood nostalgic silly thing, to be very funny. So whenever I find a rock I like, I just put little googly eyes on it and then, you know, it becomes like a pet rock. This wooden organizer I found at a thrift store. I think it has a really lovely design to it. It feels sort of architectural and cool. And I love that at thrift stores you can find, you know, anything from like goofy, weird little nostalgic things to like actually really beautifully crafted special items. And you just kind of have to dig around and search through the junk to find the good stuff. So this is the other side of my office, and I use it for storage and I use it for obviously display of yet more items. This is a dresser that I got from a location that we filmed in Kingston, New York. We were decorating a bedroom and this was in the bedroom, and we moved it out and I was admiring it. It's an 80s waterfall dresser and it came with a side table. And the homeowner was like, I hate that thing. I've been trying to get rid of it for years and years. So I took it off his hands. I also have a love for old stereos and old radios. And this one I got from Facebook Marketplace somewhere in Long Island. Like I drove to the end of Long Island and picked up this 80s stereo. But it does have a working record player, working tape decks, and it's just kind of cool to be able to have some of that old media and be able to actually enjoy it. So this is my little tiny record collection. And I think up here is kind of a gallery wall of art that I like. You'll notice that most of my place is filled with like bright colors, lots of reds and yellows and things, and this is kind of like my understated wall. This is as understated as I get. So again, there's art by some of my favorite artists, Nathaniel Russell, Mark Johnston, a lot of family photos sprinkled in, and I kind of just tried to tie the thing together with like wood frames and kind of browns and neutrals and just a lot of keepsakes that I sort of grouped by color. This is a vase that I got from literally a person selling it on the street in Brooklyn, and it's like a kind of 80s fish, and I think it's really cool. And then these are metal flowers made out of license plates that, again, that artist Mark Johnston made. And I really love flowers that are not flowers, like flowers that are made out of other materials. So I have some paper flowers, some wooden flowers, some metal flowers. I think as a motif, that's really interesting. This is another one of my very favorite thrift store finds of all time. This shell lamp I got at a thrift store in Chicago about 15 years ago. I did drop it once, so it's a little bit broken, but you know, I still love it and I'll keep it forever. I think I'm drawn when I'm thrifting to just like really mysterious items. Like if something is weird and I don't understand why it exists or who made it or where it came from, I'm just really intrigued by that, and I kind of want to make it a part of my story and kind of keep thinking about it and being inspired by it. This chair is one such item. I found it at a thrift store. It's sort of a camping chair with it looks like maybe a hand-sewn leather seat and this kind of burned-in eye motif. I have no idea what it is or where it came from, but I find it very cool and interesting. This is another mask by Gina Tro. So I have a lion over there and I think a giraffe or something over here. I just love the shapes and colors of her work. This is one of my favorite frames I've ever found at a thrift store. It's extremely glamorous, yellow and mirrored, and I put my own piece of art in it by the artist Nicole Lavelle, who does, once again, text-based artwork. So I think we've covered pretty much everything in my office, so I'll take you into the kitchen next. Production design and interior design are different. I love them both, but I am not an interior designer. I am an interior designer for myself, but there have been a few opportunities where people have asked me to do the work for them, and I don't think that's where my skills are, because first of all, for film, things don't have to stand the test of time. We put a world together and then we take it apart. And we create things for the camera, not for living. So I think that the way that we tell a story through a set is different than the way that people want to live with their things. I think that it's a really personal process to create a space for someone to live in. And I think that as a production designer, I get to do that for fictional characters. And it's very satisfying because you can fill in the details of someone's life and their backstory and what they like and what they don't like through the things that they surround themselves with. And thinking about that is really exciting, but we are building the character through their space. And when you go the other way and you do interior decorating for someone, you are celebrating their character with the things you put around them or you surround them with. And I just think that's a really intimate process, and I think it's a really different process. And a lot of what we do in production design, we put it there for a week or 2 weeks and we live in it, but it doesn't have to be a livable space. It just has to feel right. Of course, feeling right is also important in interior decorating, but I think there's more to it than that. And I think that we don't have to think about structural integrity. We don't have to think about things that you really want to live with forever. There are definitely some crossovers. Like, I think something I've taken into my own life is no overhead lights, and really thinking cinematically about how you light a space, and the same things that look good on camera feel good to spend time in. So little pockets of light, different kinds of light, variety, and sort of lighting up the places that you use the most. Like, I have my industrial desk lamp here, which is great, but I don't want that kind of light everywhere. I want that here, and I want it to be kind of in this area. I don't want a light coming down harshly on me from above. And so this is a rule that I think applies both to film and to life, and it's something that I've definitely taken from sort of creating cinematic spaces. So this is my kitchen, and I was shocked when I first saw this place to see how big of a space it was for a Brooklyn kitchen. Almost feels like a farmhouse kitchen, which I love, as I grew up on a farm, and I feel like it just has a lot of room to spread out. You know, it does have a lot of things that are just kind of like the landlord special of like whatever kind of prefab cabinets he could find, and this and that are a little bit like of a strange combination, maybe not what I would choose if I were to create this kitchen from scratch, but it has so many great details going for it that I don't even mind that stuff. I just kind of adapt it into the rest of my design. So I love the size of this. I love the big windows. I have room for a dining table. One thing I did do, because of these sort of ugly oak prefab cabinets, I did add this vinyl to them, which again is one of my kind of tricks, both for filmmaking and for life. If you have a surface or a space that you want to transform in a really easy way and add color or texture or whatever it is in a temporary way, because this just peels right off. So you can do that with vinyl or contact paper, and I use it like in a lot of different spots in my house. But I definitely think it turns this sort of ugly, weird little bank of cabinets into more of a focal point of the room. Once again, with my artwork over here, you can see my love for text in art and graphics and things like that. We have another piece by Martha Rich here. This is one of my own collages with some text from a song that I really love. These are other artists that I really like. This is Myra Coleman. She has a lot of pieces in the New Yorker, and my grandma always clips them out for me and sends them to me, and I've framed some of my favorites. I definitely am embracing the idea of like food-themed artwork in the kitchen. I'm like, why not? I have a lot of things I like that are, fruits and vegetables and text about food, and so I'm just kind of leaning into that. I have a very cute little colorful microwave, because why not have all of your appliances be cute? I have a pink toaster for the same reason. And then I even in the kitchen don't often use the overhead light, so I have little lamps scattered around the space, and I genuinely use them like even when I'm cooking dinner and things like that. So a couple things this room came with were these two kind of new prefabricated counters or cabinets, because I think they knew that there just wasn't enough storage space in here and enough surface. So I repositioned them to these two spots. So I know that my space is super colorful, and I've had a lot of people ask me like, how do I know what colors to mix or combine, or how to kind of keep it from being super chaotic if you're going to use every color in the rainbow. And I just kind of do what feels right, and I also think if you like the items that you put in your house, then they're going to go together. I definitely lean towards primary colors and pops of bright color. But I think that you can really make any combination of colors harmonious if you just kind of, feel it out and play around with how you put them together. So this sign here, Polite Laughter, is from a TV show I designed quite a while ago now, maybe 8 years ago, called Documentary Now. Fred Armisen and Bill Hader would recreate documentaries from past decades. And it was a really challenging show to design because basically every episode was a different period piece and we had to create a different decade. And also I felt that on that my job was to be the the more seriously we took it and the more real we made it feel, the funnier the jokes could kind of flow out of that. So that was a really great challenge. I learned so much about production design and what it can do. And this was from one of the episodes. It was like almost like an applause sign on a stage, but it said Polite Laughter. It's part of the joke. And then all the items up there are just kind of honestly props I've used in prop styling jobs for commercials and things like that I've just found charming and kept, and that's where I put them, and then sometimes I'll use them for other jobs as well. This is actually a great corner for cooking. It feels kind of random, like there's just like an oven stove over here in the corner, but it's actually really a pleasant place to prepare meals. I have this little pop light here that's like a battery operated light that you can stick to the wall. It's actually operated by your phone. It's a very cool company, and it's kind of a good way to put light in a little area that you might otherwise not have enough. So when I am cooking in the evening, I'll use that rather than the overhead light. So this is by an artist named Billy Lilly, who makes like hand-painted plywood art on Instagram. And that's where I found him, at least, and he does a lot of like really great pop culture references, and I love the kind of poppy, oversized boldness of his work. It's really cool and a little bit cartoony. I find it very charming and funny. This is another piece by Mark Johnston, and this is another New Yorker cutout that my grandma sent me by Myra Coleman, who's one of my favorite artists. She just has a really great sensibility and point of view that I love. This is a balloon lamp that I got in New Mexico. I love the aesthetic of New Mexico. They have the Hot Air Balloon Festival there, and just all of the kind of the artwork that is part of that Southwestern and specifically New Mexican aesthetic is really interesting to me. And then, just for a bit of extra whimsy, we have Lisa Simpson hanging out in the balloon. It was really important to me to have a lot of plants in my home in Brooklyn because I feel like I'm just in such an urban area, and I wanted it to be sort of part of the little sanctuary that I come home to. And also I have these giant windows on both ends of my apartment, so I feel like why not, make the most of them and have some plants here. So this wall really has a lot of plants, some of them doing better than others, but I like the kind of greenery and the slightly wild vibe, and I also really like the primary colors and the kind of rainbow of colors that I'm still bringing in over here. These curtains were made with old 80s sheets. I just sewed them myself. Again, not super well, but it does the job. And I like that they're just half curtains. They're kind of like cafe style curtains because I don't want anything too formal and long in here. And I also feel like this way I can just get a little bit of privacy if I want, but I'll always have that natural light coming in. And this chair is by an artist named Caity, whose Instagram is Sandwich Shop. And she is so funny and great, and she's kind of a cartoonist, and she references a lot of pop culture that I also grew up loving. So this is my David Byrne chair. It's made out of a chair from a school. I think she got it secondhand from an old school, and she drew David Byrne onto it, and I really love that. This is the kind of art that I'm really drawn to, so I'm very into all of her work. So when I first moved in, I was thrilled to have a kitchen big enough for at least like a breakfast table. And so I kind of was looking all over Facebook Marketplace for a good option. I really am drawn to these 50s style tables and chairs, and I think it's just really cute. It's not in the best shape. At some point I might want to give it a little redo, but for now, I actually drove like 3 hours up towards Albany to pick up this table, and all my friends were like, what's the big deal? But I just felt like it was the right vibe as like the center of the kitchen. So above the table, we have another sort of gallery wall with food sort of theme and definitely primary color theme. This is based on a Herman Miller design poster from 1970 that I absolutely love and could never afford. And I didn't want to buy a cheap reproduction, so I actually made this myself. It's a collage, made it out of bits of paper. This is kind of my style of collage anyway, but I'm using it to create kind of a copy of an existing piece of art. In this case, I found this red frame and I just kind of made it to fit because this is an image I've always loved and think is very funny, and I've always wanted it in my house. This is from a TV show I did called Joe Pera Talks With You, where we did an episode of a grocery store, so it'll always make me think of that. Again, we have Martha Rich and Sister Carita and Nathaniel Russell, and this is Kate Bingman Burt, and those are David Shrigley up there. And I definitely gravitate towards the same artists and like to collect their work. So this is actually the front door to my apartment. So this is the one door of the three that I actually use to enter. And it's like a little bit awkward, like a New York apartment where you kind of walk in and the fridge is right here. But I like this layout, and even though this is a stainless fridge, like the very first thing I did pretty much was just plaster it with magnets and stuff. That's just something that I feel is a missed opportunity. If you have a fridge with nothing on it, what are you even doing? So this has a lot of my favorite little mementos, photos of friends, and some artwork that I like. And it's kind of an awkward corner. Like I have a little storage unit here, my trash can, place to hang my umbrella and my hats and things. And then the main thing that I would love to get everyone on board with is the idea of a fridge lamp, because I had a set decorator and a friend that I used to work with in Los Angeles who kind of brought this idea to my attention of putting a lamp on top of your fridge, and it honestly like blew my mind. I think it's such a great idea, and if you have this kind of negative space above your fridge, it's another way to create a pocket of light that is maybe more pleasing than your overhead light. And it's just also a very funny juxtaposition to me to have like kind of a table lamp on top of your fridge. So I say go for it. Here, this is a sign from a production I worked on called Now Apocalypse. And it just seems very relevant and, you know, kind of a nice memento of the show, but also kind of weird and funny and a little too close to home when you're about to go out into the world. This is another memento from the show Joe Pera Talks With You. The director gave it to me as a wrap gift because every weekend we would go bowling, and in Milwaukee where we filmed the show, that was definitely part of the local culture. So just as kind of a memory of bowling in Milwaukee, I have this bowling pin forever. I feel like it's a bit of a trophy, which I love. So when I was in Milwaukee for 4 months, I actually bought a bowling ball at the thrift store to use for bowling, and the name on the ball was Sam Rivera. It was like inscribed or engraved in the ball, so that's why it says that on here. I do think a lot of people don't know what a production designer does, and actually I went to film school not knowing what a production designer did. I went thinking I wanted to be a director because I think when you don't work in the industry, you kind of, that's the job you think of. If you're either an actor or a director, maybe you're the cinematographer, but you kind of don't know all of the people and all of the creative jobs that go into making a film beyond that. And so I had to actually go to film school for directing to discover that I wanted to be a production designer. What it really entails is creating the space and the feeling of the movie. I think that the emotion of a space is really important. You can do that through color, you can do that through the items in the space. So everything that's on camera other than the actors and their costumes and the lighting perhaps is brought there by the production design department. And so that includes set decoration, that includes props, and that includes construction, sometimes graphics, signage, things like that. We have to be sometimes very creative in how we source items. Like, you know, we have to scour thrift stores, and we have to look on Facebook Marketplace, and we have to kind of call vendors who don't usually work on film and ask them to help us out and help us get what we need to make the movie. So that's a really exciting process, and I also love it as a way to kind of see America and see the world and like get to live in different places for 3-4 months at a time and sort of immerse myself in their culture. And honestly, getting to shop thrift stores in a new city tells you so much about the people that live there. It's almost like being like an anthropologist or an archaeologist. You're kind of like digging into the culture by looking through the items that people have owned. And that's really cool to me. I had done a movie called Sorry Baby that did really wonderfully at Sundance, which is so exciting because it's a beautiful movie. It's really special, and the tone of it is something I've just never quite seen before. It's really singular and exciting. So to be at Sundance and to see it do so well was really, really cool. And so that movie is coming out this summer with A24, and I'm really excited to see what happens when the world gets to watch it. You might be wondering where the bedroom is. Well, I have this very weird tiny door in the corner, and I've turned it into my little cozy nook of a bedroom. Let me show you. This door is another New York special, very strange, like it doesn't even have a handle on it. I don't know what you're supposed to put in here, but for me, it's my bedroom. This is by a friend of mine, James Burial, who is a wonderful woodworker, very whimsical and interesting shapes. He started making these, which he calls the Wiggle. It's kind of like a hat slash hanger for coats and towels. I use it for my bathroom towels and whatever else. And he gifted this to me because he just thought both the color and the shape were something that would belong in my apartment. And I have to say, I greatly agree. Welcome to my tiny little bedroom. It's about 6 by 9 feet. Just barely fits a full-size bed, end to end. And there's actually another door to the hallway behind this curtain, and obviously not convenient for using as a bedroom. So I just wanted to mask that was even there with these curtains. And I also think it brings an extra layer of coziness to the room by sort of creating this monochromatic pink kind of area and having the velvety curtains. It just feels like a very cozy little nook. I added this little footboard because the space was a little awkward. The bed was just a little bit too short to fill the space, so it would kind of slide around and move. So I added this little footboard here, and it just kind of like really cinches in the bed on both sides. These are some pieces of art that, again, have the text that I like so much. This was made by a Carmelite nun in the 80s from her personal collection. I just think it's really charming and sweet. This is one of the ones I've made. I'm actually, when I'm kind of not working as I would say more of like a therapeutic process, I do a lot of collage art, and this is one of mine. This is by an artist I found on Instagram who makes beautiful stained glass pieces. Again, all of this shows my love of text and kind of text mixed with design and color. This is a piece I also brought from that first movie I worked on in New York. It's not in the best shape, but I think it's really pretty, and it's definitely a vintage piece of furniture. I like the round mirror. I think it kind of plays with all of the other kind of cozy, comfortable feminine elements in this room. You know, I don't like to miss an opportunity to have little knickknacks everywhere, so I put this shelf here above my bed. It does help a lot to have these little sources of light to light up the corner, and then I just kind of have things that I like and collect that I like to have near me. This is a kinetic sculpture that I found at a thrift store in Los Angeles. And when I found it, I did not know anything about the artist, but it is signed Peter Markey, and I looked him up, and he like made these for like 50 years and died recently, actually. They're so funny and charming, and I think they just really speak to the things I like in design. I do like a sense of humor, and I do like kind of this sort of sweet, nostalgic feeling of like the hearts and the rainbows and the balloons and all of those things from my childhood. This painting I got at a thrift store in Los Angeles. There's a lot of good thrifting in Los Angeles. I have to say that is one thing about New York that does not stand up to Los Angeles. In New York, thrift stores feel very picked over. There's not a lot of real estate. In Los Angeles, you just have miles and miles of sprawl with a lot of weird, cool stuff being given to the thrift store. So this is a painting from, I believe, the 60s that was definitely one of those kind of mass-produced paintings at that time, and it's kind of mid-century, but I love the colors and I love how the green and yellow plays with all the pink I have going on in this room. So this is a wall I get to look at a lot when I'm lying in bed, and so it has some of my favorite pieces on it. This is the artist I mentioned, Esther Pearl Watson, who's kind of a folk artist working in Los Angeles. She does a lot of nostalgic art based on her childhood and a lot of sparkly UFOs, which I find very interesting and cool. This one is also one of hers. This is an original sketch where she has a piece of aluminum foil as the UFO. I went for it and added the pink sparkles myself in the framing. This is a bowling trophy from my great aunt Franny. She had a bowling league called the Birmingham Beauties in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I just really like having that in my room to look at, and I find it both funny and cute. This planter here, I guess I wanted a way to bring a little greenery and a little, obviously there's not a lot of surface over here, so I was trying to think of a way to bring a little plant into this wall. So I found this old 70s planter and have just a little bit of something growing over there. I think it's kind of a nice touch. This is a chair that a set decorator friend of mine gave me on a project a long time ago, and I've just kept it with me all the time. I like the shape and the pattern. These rugs, I don't know, it's a weird, such a tiny room. I've just kind of layered small throw rugs rather than trying to do a full rug situation, because it's literally, this room is not big enough for a real area rug. So that's all for my very tiny bedroom. Let me show you the bathroom next, which is weirdly actually the same size as the bedroom. So this is the bathroom. The funny thing about it is it's literally the same size as my bedroom on the opposite end of the apartment. So for a bathroom, it's very large. For a bedroom, it's quite small. So I do, of course, use this opportunity to have like yet another thematic moment. So I have this sort of collection of portraits, mostly portraits of women that I've collected from like Thrifting and maybe Etsy and things like that. And also I tend to find a lot of Virgin Mary artwork at thrift stores. And so whenever I call them Thrift Store Marys, and whenever I find one, I usually buy it and I kind of add it to the collection. And sometimes I add like little words and sayings to them as part of my collage process. This shelf is one that I brought from a show that I worked on, oh my gosh, so long ago, like 2012. It was a movie called White Bird in a Blizzard. That was a Greg Araki movie. This was a piece that we used in the main character's bathroom, and I just thought it was really sweet, and I've kept it ever since. This shower curtain is by an artist, Leah Rena Gorin, and she does a lot of portraits of women, and I just thought it was kind of a cool statement in this room. And then here again, I have more kind of collected bits of art and portraits of women, and the Virgin Mary as well keeps appearing. And most of those, I just keep finding them at thrift stores, and I just collect them. It just became a thing. So this is an IKEA cart. It actually might be the only thing in my apartment that I bought new from IKEA. So I take back my 100% that I mentioned before. But yeah, this is an IKEA cart, and it's just useful, I guess. And then I, of course, found another way to have a lamp in here so that I don't have to have the overhead light on. I am someone who works away from home a lot. So I'll do projects out of town for 3-4 months at a time. I'll live in a new city that I've never been to before, and I love that process. I love getting to travel. I love getting to learn about other communities. But it's really important to me to have a place to come back to that feels like kind of a safe haven. And when I moved to New York, I would say I'm an introvert. And I've heard from many people that living in New York it takes a lot out of you, because you're surrounded by people all the time, and there's always things happening, and there's always unpredictable things happening. And I think having a place to come home to that is kind of quiet, although I do have honking outside my window all the time, but I do kind of have like a feeling of solitude and peace in this place. And I know that looking around, it doesn't necessarily, peaceful might not be the word that you would use to describe the colorful kind of maximalism that I have going on, but I find it very, it's a place that I want to be in and spend time in, and I think that that's what you need, especially when you travel a lot for work, to come home to somewhere that feels like you and that tells your story and that you just want to spend time in.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.